All right, friends, it's T-Man. We are back again with another video, reaction video to Jason Blaha's video. We're going to do a reaction to the gym, lifting, recruiting, fitness, gym, fitness slave man himself, lifting slave. All right, Blaha says the number one key to gaining muscles, bro. The number one key is going to share the key with us. All right.
What is the number one key to gaining muscle? Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. All right, at the end of the day, it comes down to one thing. It's not even always about intensity. It's not even always about volume. It's not even always about exercise selection. Now, do those things matter? Yes, absolutely. They are all part of the equation. However, at the end of the day, progressive overload is the driver of muscle growth. Okay, that is the
progressive overload is the driver of muscle growth. As far as I know, protein synthesis is the driver of muscle growth and these myonuclei. But hey, I could be wrong. I guess that drives it magically out of thin air. Okay.
Driver of your gains, and I don't care what else is going on without
he doesn't care what's going on. That's the reason why he's failing, because that is not the driver of hypertrophy. There are many drivers of hypertrophy. There are two types of hypertrophy when it comes to bodybuilding. One is artificial, one is real. One is based on myofibular growth, the other one's based on sarcoplasmic growth. Now, can you get both of them together? Yes. Can you get them separately? Yes, absolutely. You could gain one without the other. Yes.
Progressive tension overload on the muscles, you are not going to see any muscle growth unless you are using magical supplements, and you guys know what I mean.
There you go. He just nailed it. He just put the nail in the coffin. He said that progressive overload was the driver of muscle growth. He says you're not going to see any muscle growth unless you take these magical supplements. So which is it? You're never going to see any muscle growth, so you have to take magical supplements, or progressive overload is the driver of hypertrophy? Give me a break, bro.
I'm not talking about stuff you buy at the regular store. Unless those are in the equation.
Look, I'm going to tell you, all of you right now, the driver of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is based on eating complex carbohydrates. They drive the quickest. They move the fastest when it comes to building the sarcoplasmic artificial muscle growth. Now, when it comes to myofibular growth, it's based on the satellite cell. That's it. And it's based on muscles being damaged. That's all. Being damaged in a damaged state, that they're able to get damaged. If they're not able to get damaged, then the satellite cell cannot donate its nuclei to support muscle growth. That's all.
Without progressive overload, we don't really see muscle growth.
I saw a video about me.
You're going to see the weights go up with progressive overload.
Equation without progressive.
Look, I'm going to tell you one more time. The only thing that progressive overload is good for is the driver of neural drive. If you want to drive your neural drive to get better at lifting away these androgen receptors, getting more hormones, recruiting more motor units and neural drive, then guess what? Progressive overload is the way to go. Adapted, yes, adapting to those weights. You could come in every single day. Hell, you could come in twice a day and you'll get even better at lifting those heavy weights, driving that neural drive. Now, if you want to build muscle, it can't be damaged all the time. And it has to go through a repair and a remodeling. It takes a lot of patience and diligence to build real muscle. It's very specific. And when they do get built the first time, when they do adapt when they do adapt to your weightlifting by building bigger and stronger, they're resilient from further assaults. So you need to move for a new adaptation. That's going to get harder every time they rebuild bigger and stronger. They get harder to damage, to repair and remodel bigger and stronger. Yeah, it is complicated. That's why the driver of myofibular growth is muscle damage. Is exercise induced muscle damage? That's the driver of myofibrillar growth. Yeah, and it's complicated, and it's based on intensity and duration and other specific things. Sometimes the muscle's untrained, it can get this damage. Sometimes you're unaccustomed, unfamiliar, doing unfamiliar things, you get this damage. But you can also get this damage providing you're not damaged already with a repeated bout. You could get this damage with a very high intense workout and duration of that workout, the intensity and duration. Let's just put it that way.
Of overload, we don't really see muscle growth. It just doesn't happen to any meaningful extent, no matter what else you are doing. Okay? And
you don't see any meaningful growth no matter what you're doing. You need these magical supplements. Yes, Blaha.
on top of that, even if that is the case, you're still going to get a lot better gains with progressive overload. And so what do I mean?
What kind of gains? He never says what kind of gains you're going to get. Gains in lifting a heavy weight, myofibrillar gains, sarcoplasmic, which one?
By progressive overload. Okay? What do I mean by progressive overload? I mean that
Look, anybody can say that. They can say, hey, guess what? The driver of hypertrophy is progressive overload, and just leave it at that. Okay, how's this accomplished then? What hypertrophy and how's it accomplished? Which one? Doesn't mention anything. There's no specifics here.
periods of time, your muscles have to be subjected to more tension. Okay, so when we say that, people say, oh, so if I can just get...
No, they have to be subjected to more intensity and duration of that exercise. You understand me? Here's the thing. The reason why, me personally, I discovered that the best to bring back this damage was a full upper body workout. If you did singles, it didn't work because you'd have to be there all day working those arms forever. You understand me? But they get worked every time you do your shoulders, your back, your chest, and everything. They keep getting worked. So that's the whole point, to overwork the entire body. In science, it'll tell you it's an overworking of that muscle and overworking. So overworking, intensity, and duration. There you go.
More weight on the bar through any means necessary, I'm going to have progressive overload. And the answer is, well, no, not necessarily. Because are you cheating the weight up?
It gets astronomically high with every bout to try to damage those muscles, re-damage them after the very first bout when you come in the gym. Untrained, first training, satellite cell fusion, hypertrophy. So after that, it becomes astronomically high to damage them with a second bout. And then when you do, if you ever do damage them with a second bout, which some people do, some people don't, it gets even harder moving up to the third bout. Yeah.
Are you skipping the bottom of an exercise? Are you bouncing the weight? You see where I'm going? I mean, if you're doing all of those things, then no, you're not necessarily getting more progressive overload. And we need to keep in mind when we're talking about this, we're talking about tension on individual muscle fibers. Okay, that's kind of relevant. It's not just what's happening just at the tendon. When we mean
tension only recruits motor units, neural drive, motor units, and androgen receptors. That's all it does if you're adapted.
by progressive overload and mechanical tension on a muscle fiber, we mean that muscle fibers get fatigued. Okay? So you also need to understand it's a little more.
They get fatigued because you're an endurance athlete now, and you're adapted. So they start absorbing more glycogen in the muscle, giving you these sarcoplasmic muscles. Yeah, filled with glycogen.
More complicated than that. We have to create fatigue at the level of the muscle fibers that we want to grow. Okay? And oftentimes that means there's a lot of stuff with rate coding and everything happening with different muscle fiber types, which is, I think, way too much for the average.
Rate coding, different muscle types. Yeah, it starts going into type 1. You become an endurance athlete. Goes into type 1 to protect the type 2s from getting damaged. Yeah.
A new person to really understand. So what we are essentially looking at when we talk about progressive overload is,
what
are the muscles themselves doing more work over time? In other words, while being in a similar range.
Are they doing more work over time? Progressive overload is the driver of neural drive. That's all, making you better at lifting if you're adapted.
Motion, similar joint angles.
Now, if you're moving for an adaptation and you're using what I would call progressive overload in an adaptation, that's specific. That's specific to that. Not a person that's coming in lifting every day. Again, I remember these people in the gym, they were like, that's because he does those heavy squats. And then the other guy goes, no, that's because he comes in once a week. Ah, that's the key. I come in once a week. How many days do you come in? Oh, I come in every day. That guy over there, he's got all the gains. He comes in once a week. Well, think about it. I did some heavy lifts. Yeah, I did those heavy squats. I remember these guys at Bally's, they're like, well, he doesn't. Yeah, that was part of it. The heavy squat and fucking coming in once a week. But they also didn't see what I was eating. I went down to the buffet. I'd eat for 5 hours straight after a damaging session. Yeah. You understand me? So it's a combination of everything. So that is based on bodybuilding. That's what I was doing. They couldn't comprehend that. They couldn't comprehend how I was able to gain so much muscle in that short period of time coming in just once a week. Because it would build the rest of the week. That's why. They were coming in and they were exercising themselves. I wasn't coming into the gym to exercise myself. I came into the gym to get an adaptation, to damage the fiber, and then grow it the rest of the week and come back and do it again. Yeah. See what I mean? So I use a combination of everything. Progressive overload, coming in once a week to damage these muscles. Now that they're repaired and remodeled, I can move for a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth bout. You can't move for a second, third, fourth, fifth bout coming in every single day to the gym. It's impossible. Muscles can't damage every day, and they can't repair and remodel in 24 hours protein synthesis. Yeah, dude.
Okay? Is that muscle doing more work? So that's what we mean by, well, if you're cutting ranges of motion, you're cheating, you're bouncing, well, the muscle's not doing more work. But does it always just mean increase on and weight on the bar or the machine? No, it can be an increase in reps. Okay? In other words, if you can only do...
His workouts are very flimsy. They're lazy. I can tell because nobody that would move for muscle damage would be doing such flimsy little workouts.
7 or 8 reps with a weight, right? Let's say you got 100 pounds.
And you wouldn't be rotating back and forth. You wouldn't be going to that machine, that machine, that machine, that machine, that machine, and that machine. Doing a row over here, one set, going over there, doing pull-ups. You'd stick to one thing first, damage as much as you can in that one session there, and then move on to the next one. Do shoulders, then do arms, then do back, then do chest. That's why they call it isolation.
That's right. I don't care what the exercise is. 100.
Think about it. He's driving all that blood in his back now, and then he's fucking gonna go do something else. Go do his arms, or some shit.
And you're struggling with 7 or 8 reps, and it gets really hard. But you build up to 10. Have you had progressive overload? Yes. Have you fatigued more muscle fibers? Most likely, especially those higher threshold ones. Over time, by doing that, he created more tension on more total muscle fibers. And I'm going to say probably yes. Okay? So if that's happening, we're in a good place, right? We're seeing progressive overload. But the problem is people will then say, oh, well, can I just infinitely add reps? And it's like, well, hypothetically, but no, not really. I mean, not really. You're going to reach a point, and I debate this often. People are like, but some of these studies do show really high reps. Yeah, but that doesn't work as well as you would think. It's one of those hypothetical kind of proven in the lab things, but the practice in the real world.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to just keep adding reps. When we start getting up to about 20 plus reps, here's what we find. Oftentimes progress goes down or starts stalling as far as...
It depends. It depends. Yeah, you become an endurance athlete now when you don't really need to go high repetition, man. That's for sure. Okay? Just a lot of sets and a lot of reps. Around the 10 to 12 mark.
Progressive overload, because they burn so much that we terminate them short. And what we really find is that if we're not within a few reps of failure, we don't really stimulate muscle growth because we don't fatigue all the muscle fibers enough to get tension.
He says stimulate muscle growth. He didn't say damage muscles. He says stimulate muscle growth. Sarcoplasmic growth?
On the muscle fibers that can grow enough. Because keep in mind, over time, guess what?
What? What, Blaha?
Not all of our muscle fibers will grow. The longer we train, the fewer muscle fibers.
Not all of them will grow? How do they grow without addition of nuclei?
Fibers we have that are capable of growing. And a lot of times we get down to that point where only those deepest muscle fibers will grow at all. Like, once you've been training...
The deepest muscle fibers will grow? How will they grow without additional nuclei to support further muscle growth?
3, 4, 5 years, really hard.
Yeah.
Almost all your growth is only coming from about 5% of your muscle fibers or less. The majority of them aren't growing.
All your growth and myofibrillar growth comes from an adaptation. That's where it comes from. If you can get an adaptation. Now, your sarcoplasmic growth, it all comes from eating this junk food that you're eating, carbs. Yeah.
Anymore. They won't grow anymore. Because only those specific type 2 fibers have infinite growth potential. So what ends up...
Only the type 2 have infinite growth potential? Infinite? They have growth potential providing they have additional nuclei. That's what.
Happening, we get really high. What happens if you are actually capable of doing 35 reps and it starts burning so bad that you have to quit at 27? Don't grow from it. That's the problem with infinite.
You don't grow from it. Like Blaha, he's never growing. So the best he could do is I couldn't beat him, so I joined them. Get skinny. I come and I get skinny, lifting weights. Yay!
Adding reps, you will stop growing by keeping the reps a little more moderate. You know, and for most people, that's going to be probably capping out at about 12.
Oh yeah.
Maybe 14 to 15 for some people. Some people really, I kind of tell them about that 8 to 10, 8 to 12 rep range. Usually a really good spot. And I'm not saying we can't gain higher.
How's that stimulating working for you, Blaha? Those arms are never growing. You're actually getting smaller and smaller.
Or lower, we can definitely gain in both. You know, we kind of get to that point to where that's, for most people, that's kind of a sweet spot between the ability to progress without either creating excessive just burning and fatigue on the volume end, or it getting so heavy that we do start to have some joint problems and get beat up. And I am all for, by the way, is doing some really heavy work every week. I do it.
Sure.
I do 1s, I do 3s, I do 5s.
Yeah.
But that really should, once you've been training a little while, that should comprise a little smaller amount. So, but the point is with all of this, yes, a lot of these things matter, but we do need tension. And should we be training to failure or close to failure? So again, that intensity, yes. Yes, we should. Should we be training with sufficient volume? Yes.
Yes, we should train to failure so we could fail at our workouts. Yes.
Should we just be adding infinite volume, hoping to get there? Probably not. Again, we run into a lot of problems with that, and I'm fully aware a lot of people do that. A lot of coaches endorse that.
Wow.
It's more...
He's getting very shaky there. You see his arm shaking when he lifted that weight? Holy jeez.
Trouble that it's worth at the end of the day, because before long you're spending hours and hours at the gym that you don't need when you could have just trained harder. So we're not saying the volume doesn't matter. We're not saying the higher intensity doesn't matter. We're not saying exercise selection doesn't matter. It all matters. Okay? These things matter. Yes, picking the right exercise, the right combinations of exercises goes a long way. But
yes,
without progressive overload,
yes, Blaha,
most of it isn't going to matter enough. That progressive overload is really your key. That is the key to making it all work, and that really is where your focus needs to be.
Wait, I thought it was the magic supplements. Otherwise, you're not going to build any muscle.
Irrespective of all these other factors, because again, they're important, but they're of secondary consideration. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you.
Very informative. I'll see you in the next one, friends. So without the magic supplements, See, he says the number one key to gaining muscle is magic supplements. Without him, I'm sorry, you're not gonna build any muscle. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends.